7, or hit me up on Twitter at SAFM Radio or at Lizzie_Khan. We're going to be chatting about apparently a new trend, homosexual relationships, just after this.
Getting your weekend started right. The Jet Set Breakfast.
Now, apparently there's a new trend in town. It is where people enter into relationships for the purposes of having shelter and other short-term goals. To discuss a little bit more, we're joined on the line by Paula Quinsee, who says this trend is fairly new in South Africa, unlike in the UK and the US. Paula, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us this morning.
Hi, Lizette. Good to chat to you this morning.
Happy New Year. Hope you've had a good start to 2020 so far.
Yes, thank you. And to you and the listeners too. I hope it's going to be a year of 20 plenty, as they say.
Well, we've had plenty of stairs to climb this morning already. So 20 plenty for us already. Just looking at homosexual relationships, can you break it down and give us just an understanding of what is meant by homosexual relationships?
So as you said earlier, it is a fairly new trend. It's been happening more sort of prominently overseas. I think we more commonly associate the term friends with benefits. We've always heard that term and associated that term with, a relationship that's purely based on sexual transactions, I would guess, or state. But in this case, it's more around the intention behind getting involved in a relationship, generally for a short-term period, and predominantly, as you say, seeking shelter or accommodation. Hence the term hobo being a homeless person. And now this isn't necessarily a hobo as such, but it's more a person that doesn't have accommodation. Either they're staying at home with their parents still, or they've been sleeping on a friend's couch, or potentially still staying in the same house as a previous relationship, so with an ex-partner, and they look to get into a new relationship for the main intents and purposes of seeking accommodation.
Well, does the other party know that, the person is basically entering into the relationship for shelter or for any sort of short-term gain?
No, not necessarily. Generally, the relationship would start off as a normal relationship, or what we perceive to be a normal relationship. So, we meet this person, we start spending time with them. The beginning stages of what we call the honeymoon phase, which is infatuation, lust, and attraction, before our relationship starts moving into the next stages of a relationship, which is where love starts coming into the picture. But generally, over time, this relationship, the risk is that the one partner will start feeling that their needs are not being met. They will start noticing or observing some sort of trends of behavior. For example, the partner is not contributing, whether it be financially or helping around the house. They can be perceived as being lazy or just not having any ambition or drive or direction. For example, they're often in between jobs, or just moving from one thing to the next, and have no real sort of commitment or focus or direction.
Well, I know that you say this is kind of a new trend in town, but just looking at some of my friends and looking at, the trend of relationships that I've seen over years, this is something we've been having. I mean, we know of a lot of people who get into relationships that, like, I don't have anywhere to go, or I'm hustling, I'm trying to do my own thing, and then they kind of end up living with you or some other point. So is it that we've maybe just not had a term for this, that now we've come up with a term that a lot of people probably have been in a situation like this, or know of people who've been in a situation like this before?
Yes, absolutely. I think you're 100% correct. As I said, we've generally associated or heard the term friends with benefits. So I think this is a new term that has come about. But people get into relationships for all sorts of reasons. It could be I don't want to be alone. I'm fear of commitment. In terms of making a serious commitment, so I'd rather just stay in the relationship. I think often, particularly from a South African point of view, women do tend to get a bad rap of staying in relationships for financial reasons, particularly where there are children concerned. Whereas this trend in terms of homosexual seems to point more to the direction of men getting into relationships for accommodation purposes.
So looking at South Africa and the current situation that we find ourselves in, where we have a high rate of unemployment, And of course, this means that a lot of people are financially not stable. How do you know the difference between somebody who is, whether we're in a homosexual relationship, or whether you're in a relationship with somebody who's genuinely, unemployed, and just not able to find work at this particular moment in time, and is not necessarily using you just for material gain or for a place to live?
Yeah, and I think this is where couples need to sit down and have those serious conversations when it comes to relationships, in terms of understanding who is contributing in what way, because money isn't the only way that we contribute when it comes to relationships. But often we look at financial as one of the key ways of contributing. So if a relationship moves too quickly, too soon, if it seems too good to be true, if it feels very one-sided, if your friends are saying things that you are not seeing or potentially in denial about, if you start changing your own behavior and withdrawing from your own friendship circles or support circles, so family structures, if you start changing your own behavior as well because of the impact of the person in your life, those are some of the red flags to look out for, as opposed to when you're in a healthy relationship where it seems more balanced and more open and transparent about where you stand with each other, what your goals and plans are together as far as a couple and a relationship is concerned.
So looking at this trend, as I said, it's more towards men rather than women. We've looked traditionally where women stay in relationships for financial purposes, whether it is because they have children, or maybe they've just been married for a long time and obviously haven't been in the working environment for a very, very long time. Are these mostly young guys who kind of get into these relationships, or are you finding that it's a blend between older and younger males who are entering into homosexual relationships?
So the trend seems to point towards more younger generations, and it seems to be more at the sort of the student or young professional sector of the market. However, in saying that, there are some signs of older generation in sort of the next stage of life, the empty nesters. Often relationships fall apart when children leave the home and relationships have become disconnected, or the couple has become disconnected because their entire focus and attention has been on the children, that their relationship has taken a backseat and there's nothing to sustain them going forward. So often relationships can fall apart. And this is where also this trend can take place in terms of moving into a new relationship for any number of reasons. As I said, fear of being alone because you've been with this one partner for 20, 30 years and you don't know how to be on your own, and also because of the financial implications of going through a divorce and a breakup.
Now, Paula, I know that, we're kind of seeing this in a negative way, but as you say that, people enter into relationships for a variety of different reasons. If people are upfront about the fact that, this is why I'd like to get into a relationship with you, maybe, I am older, maybe I have got, looking at the fact that my children have gone off into university, maybe this is also something that I would like to do, just because I don't want to get into a proper relationship. If people are upfront about this sort of relationship, is it something that could work and not necessarily just being seen as something where you kind of, mooch off somebody and are parasitic in trying to use them for financial services or financial gain?
At the end of the day, it is definitely a personal choice. And if you feel that you have the emotional maturity to handle a situation like this, and there's very clear boundaries and very open and transparent discussions up front, then that's your choice to get into that kind of a relationship. But over the longer term, it's probably highly unrealistic that it's going to be sustainable for the long term.
No, it's sort of almost basically the same as your friends with benefits kind of, relationship where you kind of start off everybody saying, oh, it's cool, we all know, no strings attached, blah, 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 blah. But, by week 3, people are developing feelings.
Absolutely. Emotions play a large role. In fact, emotions underpin our thoughts and our actions and our behavior. And at some point, that is going to shift and change in a relationship, and potentially leaving a partner feeling unfulfilled or that their needs are not being met. And that's where resentment can set in and the relationship can turn toxic and fall apart.
Paula, thanks so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat to us. If people want to chat to you some more with regards to some issues or so just understanding where they are in their relationships, where's the best place to get hold of you?
Absolutely. They can find me. I'm on all the social media platforms, so Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and also on my website, which is paulaquinsee.com.
Thank you so much. That is Paula Quinsee, a relationship expert, chatting to us this morning. A very sobering discussion, very early on the 4th of January. We know that some people might have had some December flings, some December feelings that have come up. And now moving on to January, kind of reality sets in. But chatting to us about a term that it's fairly new in South Africa called hobosexual relationships. And that's where people enter into relationships for the purposes of having shelter and other short-term goals. If you want more information, do look up Paula. She's on all the social media pages, or go onto her website, paulaquinsee.com, to get more information.